BassEdge Radio. You're listening to The Edge, everything bass fishing, coming to you worldwide from Megaware KeelGuard Studios.
BassEdge Nation, welcome to the July 15 episode of BassEdge Radio. Aaron, super great to be back on the mic, man. There's so much going on in the industry, and I got to ask you, you just come off a great little trip yourself. How was Costa Rica?
It was great on many levels, Kurt. One thing just to somewhat be traveling again, but certainly Costa Rica, so many microclimates, which I think we're going to allude to some of the ecosystem discussion, but not to go too far into detail. But, just the wildlife, the nature. We spent some time around the Arenal volcano and then also further south in Capos. But the people were just absolutely amazing. So 8 days down there. One thing I didn't see a lot of, Kurt, was a lot of Megaware KeelGuards on the vessels that we saw. But that's a little different application down there. But as always,
a market to grow in.
Yeah, man. Maybe I could write that off tax wise because I was doing market research, perhaps. But certainly, as we've mentioned many times, BassEdge Radio is brought to all of us by Megaware KeelGuard, the first do-it-yourself keel protector. So be sure, put on the protection the pros pick. Visit keelguard.com. Kurt, some interesting things, right? Champlain and St. Lawrence River, two, I wouldn't even call them surprises anymore because we talk a lot about these two individuals.
Yeah, no surprises here at all. Brian Schmidt, great friend of mine, great friend of the show, been on several times, winning Champlain. I had Brian picked in my fantasy. I knew that he went up there pre-practice, and it was very important for him to do well in this event, to stay up in the AOY, try to capture that classic qualification. Now with one event left happening this week on the St. Lawrence River, it's going to be exciting to watch that go down in all those classic qualifications. But Brian is a grass expert, Champlain, a grass fishery, particularly in the largemouth category. That catapulted him to a couple of huge bags day 1 and 2, over 21 pounds. Then just kind of held on there with some nice smallie action right down to the wire. Caught a fish, Aaron, with, 30, 20 minutes left. That victory over Keith Combs. So it was interesting. But,
perhaps the campers, obviously you're coming off of just the last official session of Kids Camp, and maybe they can get on picking the right one for the upcoming St. Lawrence.
Yeah, maybe for those elite guys. And I'm sure they were all watching Jacob Wheeler win the Bass Pro Tour event there just a couple weeks ago as well, right after our last episode. That whole thing went down. And Aaron, Jacob Wheeler, just a phenomenal angler, well ahead now in the BassFan.com world rankings, easily the number 1 ranked angler in the world over the last couple of years, and just seems to keep increasing that lead. Employed some really cool tactics to catch fish quickly, and we are going to get Jacob on in the next episode. At least that's my goal, Aaron. My goal is to get him on in the next episode, and hopefully we can break down Jacob, what he's doing to be so successful, finding and locating fish faster than the other 79 anglers there in the Bass Pro Tour. So that'll be fun to listen to.
Yes, it will be. Quickly, wanted to have you touch on Kids Camp there in New York.
Yeah.
You went from one end of the country, right, in Texas, based there, and the session up north. Can you give us a little sneak peek on what took place and just kind of the 30,000-foot view there?
Absolutely, Aaron. So our third session we had up in New York. This is the third year we've been in New York. This is the earliest we've had it. Finished up on July 10th. I believe it was. And man, it all runs together when you're at camp. It's a 4:30 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. daily excitement, honestly. And it's great to watch those campers catch smallmouth and largemouth. Oneida Lake, a great 50-50 lake. It's going to be a Bassmaster Open event there later this month at the end of July, early August. So that'll be fun to watch. But camper came out on top with 11.5 pounds for 3 fish. That was the winning weight at the tournament culmination. But man, it's so good to be able to instruct these young anglers on smallmouth fishing, particularly still in a vegetation or deep water, mid-depth, I would say, environment there on Oneida. But you can do the power fishing for smallmouth, obviously the largemouth as well, or, the finesse style, deeper drop shotting, tube dragging, those types of things. So Oneida Lake's always great, and huge shout out to the instructors that we have there at camp. Had several MLF Pro Circuit anglers, a couple of local steadfast guides up in that region. So, the New York camp is growing. We had 22 campers this year, and it continues to just be a great platform for smallmouth fishing and just kind of teaching also on a natural lake. So I think it's a great program. The campers obviously really enjoy it. Parents, it's always smiles, and the campers can't stop talking about it once they go home.
Yeah, I saw the social media pics, and they looked amazing. And I know that, not only did they have fun, but they learned a lot and probably picked up numerous tips from the instructors. Yeah,
it's a great time. And we're going to go into a protecttheharvest.com tackle tip, Aaron. Y'all stay tuned. We're going to continue with Bass Edge Radio. This episode's protecttheharvest.com tackle tip with BASS Elite Series Pro, Jake Whitaker.
Hey guys, this is Jake Whitaker. We are right in the middle of summertime, but one of my favorite ways to catch that biggest bass of the summer is fishing shallow. And one way to do that is by skipping docks. My 3 favorite baits for skipping docks in the summertime is 1, a 1/2 ounce Archie style jig with a big bite bait Yo Daddy trailer. Also, a 1/2 ounce chatterbait with a swim bait on there. And you can't leave home without your wacky rig, your 5-inch big bite bait, trick stick. I throw my jig on 17-pound P-line tackle 4-carbon. I'm fishing this when the water's clear and you've got a few brim around. I'll then switch over to a vibrating jig, chatterbait style bait, whenever those fish are feeding on shad or you've got a little wind, something that you can run and fish as many docks as possible. And then I'll reach for my wacky rig Cinco, my 5-inch trick stick from Big Bite Bait. Whenever we've got some brim on the bed, I've got a shallow dock, anything 5 foot or less, I'm reaching for that wacky rig. So guys, get out there this year and get you some dock skipping baits, that jig, chatterbait, and a Cinco, and I think you're going to have a lot of success.
Great tip, Jake. Brought to you by protecttheharvest.com.
First by land and now by sea. For years, Lucas Oil has been a staple in high-performance vehicles on both the road and track. Now, from the makers of Lucas Oil comes Lucas Marine products, specifically engineered for marine applications. Protect and lubricate your marine inboard, outboard, or high-performance boat with Lucas Marine Engine Oil or Lucas Synthetic-Based Oil. Learn more about the complete line of Lucas Oil and marine products. Visit lucasoil.com.
Nitro Performance Bass Boats. Get pro-level performance with the Nitro Z18, the official boat of Major League Fishing. The Z18, with its nimble handling and versatility, sports many of the features in the larger boats in the line, like a Guardian Live Well, a heavily insulated cooler, dual 8-foot rod storage, and our smooth and fast NVT hull. Every Nitro boat is laid out to do one thing very well: catch fish. Enormous front decks, up to 45 square feet on the Z21, allow maximum mobility when battling unruly bass, and feature low-profile gunnels for ease of skipping, pitching, flipping, or landing fish. Nitro Performance Bass Boats, pure fishing machines.
Kurt, I must say we got a little press there on the MLF BFL stage, I guess, and hit the press release. Good friend of BassEdge, Mr. Chris Bunk, won the amateur side back in June on Truman. He actually beat all the pros too from the back of the boat, which was a different story. But yeah, sporting the BassEdge gear in full swing.
That is awesome, man. He's got that new Lucky hat, and if you don't have your Lucky BassEdge gear yet, you can get that out there on the website. We got 2 different styles of shirts. We've got the hat, a Richardson 112 hat. I mean, quality stuff we got there, Aaron, sporting the BassEdge insignia, and apparently it wins tournaments.
Yes, just not for me. So anyway, but no.
Well, I wore mine quite a bit, and I do seem to catch bigger and better bass when I'm sporting it.
Yeah, I've got to say, at least I'm setting inside the top 40, so it does have some luck. So anyway, for sure.
Let's talk about that real quick. That BFL, Aaron, Truman high water event. right? And after last episode, we talked in some of our segments about Jokpo Galili over there on the Potomac River, my ex-home body of water when I was living in Virginia. But a lot of different things that ecosystems go by and change, and high water and how that's affecting. I remember you put some really good strategy into effect there, knowing that the water was high, yet it was dropping, seeing some of those outside bushes, and that really kind of helped catapult you into a quality finish.
Yeah, and the whole ecosystem discussion like you speak of, Truman is one of those lakes that I hadn't been on in 13 years just because of tournament schedules, things like that. But it's also a lake historically. I do have quite a bit of time on it, but it's not a lake, Kurt, that I go there 2 weeks in advance, or I'm trying to gather all of this information prior to hitting the boat ramp, just because it is a flood control lake and the water fluctuation is relative to the body of water. I can remember one of our guests was talking, right, I think it was Matt Airy maybe, talking about what is the water fluctuation relative to the body of water that you're on. And that's one of those situations to where I quickly figured out it was coming down by looking at the generation schedules. It's about 4 to 5 inches a day. So that meant, all of those real shallow bushes, by the time 3 days of practice, the tournament actually started, some of those bushes are going to be high and dry. So I really felt it was a current situation for me personally. Obviously, some guys caught them differently, but I was targeting those deeper bushes out on points and essentially, picked up a jig, and then of course going to that Brett Height special, right? The chatterbait, the Evergreen, and that's how I was able to kind of come in and certainly get well within the check line and kind of keep me inside of I think I'm setting 36 or 30 seconds, something like that, with one tournament to go. So
yes, and in good position to qualify for that regional. That's gonna be fun to watch. And I wanted to mention, you kind of talked about the Matt Airy deal. That's exactly where some of that high water information we just had recently. So folks, be sure to listen to that Matt Airy podcast that we just had July 1. He talks about how he did well in the Classic with the high water conditions, something that you see kind of early to midsummer a lot of times, not so much late summer. Usually, things get a little bit drier later in the summer, especially now, moving into late July and soon to be August and September, just weather gets a little bit drier. But also, Aaron, with the Jokpo deal and the Potomac River, not only can ecosystems change rapidly with high, low water, those types of things, but how wild can they change over time with just environmental ecosystem changes, in this case, the grass on the Potomac River?
Yeah, I mean, what a great point, and I'm anxious to kind of hear your take on it. I've been fortunate. Actually, I spent quite a bit of time up there with you, but obviously not nearly as much time as what you have. So what have you seen? I mean, is it more of a scenario like rivers that I'm familiar with? They silt in and it kind of changes with that respect. But, I got to admit, Kurt, the only grass I'm familiar with is in my front lawn, and there's just not a lot of it in Missouri.
Yeah, understandably so. And the grass scenario is really the style of grass, and the type of grass, I should say, has changed on the Potomac. And it's really altered the way the fish eat, how they relate to the grass, and when are those better feeding zones. You hear us talk about it, whether it's on the Sabine, the Cal Delta, St. Johns River, Hudson River, any of the, Upper Chesapeake, any of these tidal fisheries. Generally, the last couple hours of outgoing tide is really primo. And it's still good on the Potomac in certain situations. But, man, a lot of the new big grass flats, it's not necessarily cover that's over top of the fish's head anymore. It's a lot of cover that's just more of ground, what I would maybe call ground or subsurface, sitting
so kind
on
of like
the bottom.
Stems and stalks, it's coming up, but it doesn't necessarily have the canopy.
Exactly right. And it really cleans the water. It's much cleaner. The Potomac is much cleaner now than it used to be in a lot of these areas. And what the big educational point is being able to adapt to different ecosystems is really, really important. It's not always going back to the same old, but as your fishery changes, no matter how it is, whether you're living in Table Rock and the water's increasing and dropping, or Truman like you had at the BFL, or I see, here with grass changing on the Potomac River, it's always important to make those adjustments and really be detailed analytically to what the fish are doing and how they're relating to cover in certain circumstances.
And not fish the past, right? Because
that is
if it's changing, right?
You got it. So, Aaron, that's the big takeaway from that ecosystem changing, the high water changing, and how all of that really comes together. Be sure to really follow whatever tournament you might be going to, or if it happens to be your home lake and you just fish it week in, week out. It's not easy to see on a short-term basis, but long-term, if you go away for a little bit and come back, you're going to see some of these changes and be sure to adjust to them accordingly. So,
great
and
advice.
talking about, Aaron, talking about adjusting accordingly, we're going to adjust into our Lucas Oil Angler Spotlight right here. We've got another great angler, one of the best from the West. Y'all stay tuned. Bass Nation angler Justin Kerr coming up in just a moment.
I am Bassmaster Elite Series angler Patrick Walters.
This is MLF Pro Circuit angler Trevor Fitzgerald.
This is BASS Elite Series Pro Brandon Pollinae.
I am MLS Big 5 Pro Circuit angler Gray Buck.
This is 2020 BASS Angler of the Year Clark Winland. Stay right here for more BassEdge Radio.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat? Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard.
Today's show has one of the West's very best. He stayed away from the national scene for most of his career, although popped out with a top 5 performance at the past 2021 Bassmaster Classic, and he was representing the Bass Nation anglers. If you're from the West, you're wondering why probably he hasn't made the shift to fishing the big national circuits. He's standing in the check line in most tournaments he fishes. Super stoked to have him on the show. Evergreen pro angler Justin Kerr. Thanks for being with us today, Justin.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Like Kurt said, looking forward to diving off into this. Nice work at the Classic, by the way. I thought you were going to take the win for the BASS Nation anglers. And what was your experience like there in Fort Worth, this past June, coming away with the 4th place finish?
It's an amazing, opportunity just to be there and fish against those guys. And, first of all, to see Hank win back-to-back Classics, I only seen that, besides Jordan Lee, and that shows the perspective. I mean, I really would doubt after Jordan it was going to take a really long time, but that just shows how amazing Hank is and how good he is. So, he made himself a legend this week, so to see that is pretty incredible. But the Classic experience overall was just amazing. Amazing tournament Bass put on, and to represent the nation, there's not many people that get that opportunity, so it was pretty incredible.
So, Justin, I got to ask, after the success on the national scene, very well placed out west and dominant out there, got a U.S. Open win, Toyota Series win out there, lots of top 10s. Does this success and this feeling, the emotion of the Classic, does it push you a little closer to maybe making that trip out east a little more often to get on that national scene?
Yeah, of course you always have that drive, and some things, just don't happen when you want them to, and that's just the way life is. And, I just turned 40, and, I'm not too old yet, so if I could get out there maybe and have another chance at it, I probably would for sure. And, fishing these opens this year, maybe, things go smooth, you just make it. So, I don't push things, and I've always been like that. I just kind of never really pushed the way I should want to go. I just feel if it's meant to happen, it's going to happen. So, that's just kind of how I do it. Let's
run with that real quick. Do you feel that mindset and that approach to life serves you well in fishing, Justin?
Yeah, absolutely. We're fishing against a living creature. We don't know everything. And, there's guys that do know a lot of stuff, but most of all, they have just a natural ability to know what to do when. And, I just feel that you can't really push things, you just, if it's meant to go right, it goes right. You lose some fish, everyone loses them. And my whole thing was, you fish perfect all the time. And if you do fish perfect, you're going to have that opportunity to win a lot. So yeah, I don't really stress out. This was actually the first time in a tournament I've been stressed and nervous a little bit. And it was actually the first day. The first day I was nervous. The rest of the tournament I wasn't. So we're fishing for a living, and you can't ask for that. There's people that sacrifice a lot of things in their lives to let us bass fish. So, I just keep that in my mind, and I've always been like that. I don't push things, so just the way it is.
I like it, man. Justin, you called out a couple of main lures in that classic success. Obviously, Evergreen, a longtime supporter of yours. I've watched you from afar, from a long ways. I got to let you know, you got the gift. Obviously, more people should know Justin Kerr, and that's really why I wanted to have you specifically on the podcast. I'm like, I got to get this guy on. He's a bass nut, and he's just all in, and I really like that. So, long story short is, go back through the classic stealth jackhammer. One of the lures you called out as a primary success, and also, you had that custom rat that you used over there at Ray Roberts. Can you give us a percentage of bass you weighed in and you caught maybe on each lure effectively over there at Ray Roberts?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, the first day I used a stealth blade to catch 3 of the 5 I weighed in, and the other 2 I caught flipping a jig. That's how I caught my fish the first day, and so there's a couple on the stealth blade. Second day, I flipped the jig, and I caught that first big one, and that kind of got me going, which was a 7-pounder, and I just kept moving down the bank, just fishing real slow and thorough through the area, because the big ones were biting. I saw another one that was like 8 or 9 pounds, so I just kept moving, and we didn't have much time, and so I just
got the big delay that day, right?
Yeah, big delay with the weather. So I just picked up just a normal jackhammer, 3/8, and I caught another big one on that. And the only reason I was throwing that rat in practice, I actually had a bunch of big bites. That's how I found the area. But the weather was really calm in the mornings every day, and that rat, you have to have calm weather for it to really catch them. And I've caught very little in weather that's, windy or even rainy. They have to feel it and hear it. So the last day was perfect for it. And I threw it thinking I was going to get some bites, and never got bit. But that whole area, I think, that I was fishing, just that general area was just dead. And I had to move just to get bit on the final day out of that cove into another little cove nearby. And I just picked up just a normal 3/8 jackhammer just to make them react. It was, there was no wind, and that's the only way I was catching them really. So I had to pick that up, and I think I flipped one on that jig. And I went old school and put a piece of pork on there on the jig. That Uncle Josh finally came back out with some pork. So I picked up the pork and put that on my jig.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, let's take a little bit deeper dive into the rat. What times of year does the lure work for you? And quite honestly, can you go through some of the differences between the custom rats versus the manufactured rats, let's say like Spro, manufacturers?
Yeah, so fishing that type of rat, it's a wake bait, and it's a big profile, kind of a swim bait mindset. So for me, the best times have always been early spring into summer, and the best around bluegill beds. For some reason, if the brim beds are up, I don't know why they eat it. I don't know if muskrats dive down to eat eggs. I have no idea. But when there's brim beds around, that's when it seems to be the best for me. And I've thrown it for quite a while. I was introduced to it by Art Berry, an old fisherman from the West that had major wins out here and stuff. And
he's a top 150 guy. I remember Art Berry.
Yeah. So he showed me that a long time ago, and it's just been something I've used, and I won the California Open on it, and that was around brim beds, and I catch 2 6-pounders every day on it in the morning. So, it just catches bigger fish, and, there's a whole bunch of different ones, and, I have a couple custom ones that in a tournament you want efficiency. You want to be able to cast, move the bait quick, cover water a lot. Some other ones are really good twitch baits, fishing just for certain guys just go, I want to catch a 10-pluser. Those are the ones you twitch and fish slow. So there's, just so many different ones. And the ones that I've used are, ones that are efficient in a tournament. And that's a big difference like I said, fishing big swim baits. Some are floaters, and you catch big fish on just floating swim bait, but you don't get many bites, and that's not great for a tournament. And we all know how tournament fishing is with big swim baits. You either catch them or not. So it's kind of like that. Right. And that's what I did in the Classic the last day. And, like I said, I mean, it's just what I thought to do was right. And they were obviously biting topwater. Those guys got them good on the last day on frogs and stuff. And usually they would fit that thing. I mean, I had at least 6 bites in practice, and I only caught one of them, and it was a 6+. So I figured I at least get 1 or 2 bites on it. But I think the area I chose in the morning was just wrong. But that's where you got to go back to where you're doing good in the tournament. So, it is what it is, and that's how I fished it. But I never really caught one in the tournament on that, but that's what I chose to try to get it done, so.
The rat thing intrigues me a lot. I remember several years ago, there was this rat coming out party. There was a couple tournaments. The rat was a big deal, but it fizzled out really fast. But, I saw it on the lures, and I was like, oh, dude, he was throwing the rat. That's freaking killer, because, it's not a common lure that you see throwing very much. Do you throw it a lot at Havasu?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's one of the places we have a lot of muskrats, and especially this time of year, we don't have a lot of, big tournaments, but we have a lot of like Wednesday nighters, and I've caught them on it for years. It's not as good as it used to be because a lot of guys throw it now, but like I said, it's one of those lures that's mostly it's a time of year deal. And that's the only problem with it for tournament fishing is unlike the jackhammers year round, so that's the only problem with it. But you catch some big fish on it when they're biting it. I mean, I remember when I first started throwing it at Havasu, I literally went into a backwater and just casted 360 degrees around the boat. Every cast was a fish.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, it was like incredible. I mean, from 3 to 4 or 5 pounders, so when they were lakes that haven't seen it, I'm sure they'll bite it really good. So,
well, I bet you there's a lot of those out east that they haven't seen a whole lot of rats. So,
yeah.
All right, sounds good. We're going to go into the other lure a little bit deeper. You talked about the jackhammer, the stealth, and the regular there from Evergreen. We actually had B Height on, not just, I think it was what, Aaron, like 2 or 3 episodes ago?
It was actually.
Yeah, and I told B Height, I said, man, the stealth, it's out there. You haven't seen a lot of guys using it as much yet. And he said, well, it's because everyone's on the down low with it. And I was like, oh, all right. So I see that you were using it. And I noticed at the U.S. Open last year, there were some guys using it over there at Lake Mead. And so I like a lot of techniques. And I'm obviously, with your experience in the industry, you see a lot of things move maybe, from the west to the east, and a lot of techniques coming from the west that move east. Do you see the stealth as one of those players that's really popular out west, kind of on the DL, and it's going to start moving east? And what situations do you see that this lure is excelling as it travels from west to east and eventually maybe becomes a staple for bass anglers' tackle boxes?
Yeah, so I think mostly coming up here again early in the year is probably going to be a big deal with it finally, because the whole key with that stealth blade is you have to wind it slow. So once the fish are there, and that's why I chose it, because I was fishing fast, but I was fishing slow next to the bush. So I had that 3/8, and I could just wind it super slow with the speed crawl, and it floated it real well, and I could just wind it real slow next to that bush. So that's the whole key with that stealth blade. You can't cover water like a normal jackhammer. You have to know they're there, and you wind it slow through them, and it's so subtle but has that right vibration that they just can't help themselves but eat it. So I'm sure that I think, like you said, a lot of guys have it on the down low, and I think they're just not really talking about it too much, or they haven't fished it and they go, oh, I can't cover water with it. Well, you have to know they're there, and you wind it slow. That's the whole key with that bait.
Gotcha. Do you use a lower gear ratio reel, or are you just still using, like, say, a 7-to-1 and just turning that handle slower? Or do you get really slow with it and go like a 5-to-1?
No, I'm still using the 7-to-1 because we all know a lot of the times you hook one, man, you got to catch up to that thing.
Yeah.
So those big ones especially. So I'm just barely turning the handle, and just fishing it slow with my rod tip up. That's how I caught them.
Very cool, man. Interesting conversation, fellas. We're going to power pull down for a short pause in the interview. We're going to be right back with more from Evergreen professional angler Justin Kerr.
Patented in 2000, perfected over years of testing and real-world punishment, the Powerpull is the ultimate shallow water boat positioning tool. Swift, Powerpull deploys in seconds from anywhere in your boat. Virtually silent, Powerpull won't spook wary fish. Secure in strong currents or gusting winds in up to 8 feet of water. Engineered to take it with a lifetime unconditional replacement guarantee on the spike. Powerpull, swift, silent, secure. Visit powerpull.com to find a dealer near you.
BassEdge is presented in part by ProtectTheHarvest.com, returning with professional angler Justin Kerr in the Lucas Oil Angler Spotlight. That's right, Lucas Oil high-performance marine products. Be sure to visit the BassEdge.com store for free shipping on all Lucas products. It works.
Justin, you make your home there at Lake Havasu, guiding there, I believe, on a regular basis. You know, you see a lot of pros living down in that area of the world, Arizona specifically, and there's obviously other guys living all throughout California and things, but Havasu's a special lake out west. What are some of the key midsummer patterns that take place there in the desert?
So the desert, you know, it's we get super hot, and plus, like I've tried to say, I don't guide there very much.
Okay.
At all. One of my teammates, Sean Bailey, he guides there all the time. So you need a good guide there. He's the one. So
Sean, okay, I got you.
Yes, but midsummer patterns there, you know, we get super, super hot, and sometimes it seems like the hotter, the better. And which is crazy to say that, you know, and it's 120 there right now. Wow. I'm actually out in California, so it's pretty hot there right now. So I don't do much fishing when it's like that, but usually the fishing is good when it's super hot. Frog bite and flipping will pretty much, and, you know, obviously throwing a rat will pretty much be all I would do from now all the way into the fall. That's pretty much what we do there, and deep crank a little bit. And the lake's changed a lot in the last 7 or 8 years. We've had some tournaments on big spawns, and I don't think they've spawned real well. And I think a lot of people have killed them over the last couple of years, eating them. You know, we have a lot of snowbirds that come out there. Havasu's doubled in size in the last 4 or 5 years. So we've had a lot of people come in, I think, and they've killed a lot of fish. So tournaments now, it's like 8 to 10 bites is a good day, you know, because you're fishing for those, you know, obviously better fish, and they're getting hard to catch, man. So it's a definitely changing place, but summertime is usually pretty good. A lot of guys aren't fishing, and fishing can be good. We get grass that top out in 25 feet. So sometimes you can flip that deep flipping, you know, in 20 feet of water, which is a little different. But Havasu is just such a versatile place, and you have to always be able to change. And I think that's why a lot of guys that live there and have come from there are such good fishermen.
Does it turn into a largemouth fishery in the summer, or, you know, because obviously Havasu's got a great smallmouth population. Is there still some anglers that can key on the smallmouth in the summer, or are they like a lot of landlocked lakes where they just kind of disappear that time of year?
No. Okay. Our smallmouth are different, man. Our smallmouth are a lot different out there on that Colorado River. They're not like normal smallmouth that this cold water fish. I mean, these fish love the heat, and it's crazy to me how good they bite in the summer. Catch a lot of smallmouth too, and they're just different out there. A lot of them feed shallow. They don't, you know, I mean, guys do catch them suspended and deep during the winter, but most of the time you catch them shallow, and they're just a different fish. From there to Lake Mead to Mojave, Powell, I don't fish there very much, but when I have been there, I just catch them shallow all the time. They just live up shallow in the warm water, and you go, man, that's a smallmouth. It shouldn't be up here, and you catch a 3 to 5 pounder, you know. So they're just a different breed. I think they're just used to that heat, and they just act different.
Very interesting. Hey, Justin, you know, Kurt and I were talking before we jumped on to actually record with you, that I posed the question to him. I said, you know, what's up with, seems like a lot of anglers out west, specifically in Arizona, are kind of tied in with Evergreen, but you're kind of one of the originals. Curious to know, how did those relationships from, you know, a Japanese company begin to develop in that region of the country?
Yeah, you know, I think the Japanese have always been kind of interested in people from the West Coast. I don't know if they're because they're innovative, or, you know, many guys that are the best in the sport have come from the West Coast. So I don't know if that's why, but they've always had a comfortable feeling with West Coast guys. And I just happened to get fortunate, and there was a Japanese kid that was coming out from, you know, obviously like Osaka area where Evergreen is from, and he came out and fished a lot of FLW tournaments, and I, you know, became friends with him, and I kind of helped him out along the way here and there. And John Morrow at the time was I believe, with Kanji, which was a tungsten company.
Yeah.
And they were friends with Evergreen, and they needed someone. They said, oh, we're going to maybe come out here and check out the U.S. And, they've been around for 30 years, and their baits, most of the baits we use, they developed them 15, 20 years ago. So it's like they're unbelievable products, and a lot of people don't know. And we said, yeah, we'll check out Evergreen. And Laurel chose me, Brett, and Sean, and they were super happy with that. And that was, I think, 2008. And after that, it's been pretty much like family. They're super loyal people and amazing company to work with. I couldn't ask for a better company, especially in this industry. Everyone knows how tough the industry is, and super fortunate to be with them, make amazing products. Like, what they sell in the States is not even a quarter of what they sell. So they have an amazing stuff. And I'm sure, besides the jackhammer, which everybody knows now and everyone has, with partner with Z-Man, having that is pretty amazing deal. And it seems like everyone owns one. And I'm pretty sure soon everyone will own a couple crankbaits too. Once they
right.
see. They just make amazing stuff, and everything's high end and designed by one designer for each bait. So just everything's done right. So
you get to shoot in some ideas here and there. I saw at the Classic. I didn't see it personally, but I just saw at the Classic that they let out the mini shower blows. It's a little
the little one.
Yeah, dude, that's gonna be a player, buddy. That's gonna be a player.
I know. I haven't really messed with them too much. I did get them last year a little bit before the Open, but I got on something else. I didn't really throw it too much, but most of the time that stuff's like designed by Marizo. So what Marizo says for that, they did let me design a little topwater for Lake Mead, and it works pretty good. It's a silent bait they have. It's Justine, and it's a 3-hook bait. I kind of made it kind of like that old Balsa Pro, and which was a good bait at Lake Mead and silent, stealthy conditions. So that bait's real similar to that, and it gets bit real well.
Very cool. Anything else on the horizon for Evergreen that we should let the listeners know about, new baits that they've released recently that they should take a peek at?
Yeah, the 2 baits that they came out with at the Classic, which I've been using for a while, is their Loud Buzz. It is super, super loud, just like it says. It reminds me of like the old Reaction Ovation Squeaky Dolphin, I think it was called. It reminds me of that bait. It's super, super loud. You definitely have to run a trailer hook on it. It needs a little bit bigger hook on it. But I've been fishing it at Lake Mead for at least 3 years now, and I think I'd won 1 team championship on it. It might have been a Lucas team championship last year, the year before. Just super good bait. And the other bait that we've been using for a long time is their Grass Ripper, and they brought it out. So swim jig, they definitely stepped up the hook on there. They put the same hook that's in the Stealth blade in it, and it's a swim jig. They make them in, I think, from quarter to 3 half ounce, I believe, and they just have awesome colors, same colors that are in the jackhammer. It's a really good swim jig. We've been using it for a long time.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to be sure to check those out. Just before we get into our listener question for this episode, I mentioned it earlier. The real deal is you're just a bass junkie. You've been a bass junkie a long time. You're kind of one of those guys that grew up into it and has continued that strong passion for the sport and innovation. And, a friend of mine mentioned you even worked at RoboWorm for a time. Want to get your insight on what that experience was like, and do you enjoy that aspect of working in the industry from that manufacturer perspective?
Working for RoboWorm, of course, to see that, how that whole production went down. I was looking for a job still in between, fishing and living at home. I think I was maybe 21 or 22 years old. And then, Greg and Mike have been good friends with me for a long time. And they're like, yeah, sure, come on in and pour some worms with us. And I'm like, okay, check it out. The machine that Greg makes is to be that intelligent, and to do that is like something that's way beyond me, so to see that whole aspect of the manufacturing process and how it goes down, and how Mike is so into detail. If the worm doesn't look right, he'll throw it away, start over, and that's just shows how good the company is. And I've been with that company for a long time, and friends before that, so it just shows that there is a lot of good people and good companies in this sport, and how it all plays out.
So what was your actual function there when you were working there for a few years?
Worms in the bag.
Worms in the bag.
Yeah,
I love it.
That is so cool.
Worms in the bag, and obviously I get a couple special runs here and there, and it was a perfect way for me to be able to fish and work a little bit, make some side money during the week and fish on the weekends, or pro tournament comes up and they let me get off for a little bit. So it didn't last long. I decided, I'm just going to guide out west and fish in the tournaments, but it was an awesome opportunity.
That's a cool experience. That's, Robo used to have and it wasn't actually that long ago that they changed their packaging. Maybe, I don't know, the past 3 years, but they used to do it old school with the plastic bag, and they flipped it over and stapled the cardboard on it.
The cardboard that said Robo Worm in red and white.
Yes.
Yep. I didn't have to do that. I just pretty much put them in the bag, and someone put them in another process that would staple them. And you hear that stapler all day. Because they were pushing worms, man. They still do. So it was pretty crazy.
That's cool. And you had a lot of Western anglers get their, very successful Western anglers. Aaron Martins, Mike Folkstad. I'm sure there were others. Don't come to mind. So you got to do some custom pours. The Kerr worm, I haven't heard of the Kerr worm yet. Is it coming, or where are we at on that?
I had it for a little bit. We call it Kerrlicious.
Kerrlicious, okay.
We had it for a little bit. It was pretty much like a green pumpkin, and it had like chartreuse underneath with some blue and copper flake in it. And we had it for a little bit, and then it kind of phased out a little bit, so... time of year.
I'm sitting here listening to this dialogue, and I'm thinking album cover. Worms in the bag, Kerrlicious. I think you got a second career here.
Right. My kid's a really good drummer. He's only 7, but he's really good. So he might be making an album. We'll just throw those names in there.
That'd be so cool. Man, this has been a great interview, Justin. Let's go into the listener question segment of the show, presented by Nitro Performance Bass Boats. Mike Silva sends in a great question. Mike's from South Carolina. Michael asks, what is the key to deciphering if bass are post-spawn or summer pattern? I've been fishing a long time, but I've never been able to truly tell the difference.
So obviously, how my take on that whole deal is, we really don't know a lot. And obviously I learned that at Ray Roberts this week. I think I caught some spawning, some post-spawning, and that's the middle of June. So the only way I could say is most of the fish, that are done post-spawn and they're in summer pattern are most of the time living in the grass or super deep. And once they go to that stage, that's about it. That's when I know they're in the summer pattern. I'll fish them out deep or living in the grass.
Gotcha. I think too, obviously, even as you just mentioned, maybe you caught some spawners at the Classic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
And things happen throughout such a long process. I think we think, some anglers think, well, the bass are spawning, and then that lasts for 3 or 4 weeks or something. I really believe that these processes are so long and drawn out that you have bass that are in summer pattern and potentially bass that are still pre-spawn all at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I see that, Yeah,
so I would say to Michael, too, that there is no distinction between X and Y. It's just not that clear. It's a blurry line all the way through, and depending on how you're attacking the lake will really decipher if you are targeting post-spawn fish in this situation.
Right.
Well, Kurt, I think you bring up a good point, because I think human nature, right, is that we want to label everything. And, your point to where you've got pre-spawn, spawners, and post-spawn, I mean, certainly the three of us on this conversation right now, we've all experienced that. But I'm pretty sure none of us are going to ask the fish, well, it wasn't in post-spawn, so I'm going to throw it back and go for a different one because I wanted to catch it in post-spawn. It's just a matter of paying attention, right, to kind of what's going on and how we're targeting those and trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together. But, Justin, you had mentioned that kind of the transition. Do you feel that post-spawn is more of a transition to get to, to where they're going, and then they hang out there for a while?
I feel with that, they're just trying to recoup on post-spawn most of the time. They're just recouping. That's all they're doing, is trying to get strong after the spawn and being caught a lot during the spawn and released. And, I just think they just spend a lot of time just recouping. And that's why you catch them on top water and stuff like that a lot, because they're, just sitting out there. They're not relating to anything. They're just hanging out, just trying to get better. So I think, most of the time when you're fishing like that, that's why you're catching those fish.
Good stuff. And certainly, Justin, thank you for answering Michael's question. And Michael, just want to let you know that there is one more step that we need you to take, and that is simply log on to BassEdge.com, click the Claim Your Prize tab, fill out the information, let us know that you heard Justin answer your question on episode 356 of Bass Edge.
Continue to remind all Bass Edge Nation listeners, we can't pick every question, but we try to get them all on the show. Keep firing them in through the website. Simply click the Ask the Pros tab, or leave those comments and questions on our Facebook or Instagram media pages, and we will continue to get as many questions as we can get answered here on the show.
Well, Justin, appreciate the time today. It's been truly a pleasure getting to know you a little bit better and hearing your story and kind of your thoughts and kind of really raising all of our IQ in Bass Edge Nation. Any thoughts that you want to leave us with as we shut this episode down?
Thought-wise, my whole thing is keep a goal. Try to set yourself goals in bass fishing if you really want to do this, and fish hard as much as you can and try to reach those goals. And no matter how long it takes, as long as you can hit the goals, that's all worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Justin, what's next on your schedule? What do you got coming up this summer? We're into July now. You're going to be back at the U.S. Open, I assume, in the fall. Is that right?
Yeah. I got, obviously Western stuff. I got some MLF Toyota Series and the Delta next month. And I'm going to fish some Bass Opens. I got the rest of the Centrals there in October. So I got those, and then obviously U.S. Open and a couple team championships I got. So hopefully have a good pull and continue.
Always keeping a busy tournament schedule, man. It's great stuff. Keeping you on the water, keeping things fresh. And do you usually practice a lot? I'm getting into a couple other questions here, but do you usually practice a lot for events, or do you just do a couple days and you're good?
Just usually a couple days. I feel out west. I've been fishing out west for so long. Obviously, I don't get the opportunity, even if I went out east, to go, more than 2 or 3 days just with the kids and stuff. So most of the time, I get 2 or 3 days, and especially out west, like I said, I know the places. I've been there, and I fish kind of the same areas that I've always have because I feel like I can win in those areas. And I feel if I don't get on them in 2 or 3 days, I probably won't. It wouldn't take me a week, so
right.
The 2 days I feel, and the 2 days before the tournament are the most important anyway. It's not what you did the week before. So I kind of keep that in mind. I usually get there the day, and then I fish for 2 days, and then I fish the tournament. So that's usually how I've done it for a long time. Is get about 2 days, 2.5 days.
Good perspective. Yeah, I like it. It's great stuff, man. Justin, man, it's been a great time chatting with you here at Bass Edge and exploring all that fishing knowledge that you get. Man, I look forward to seeing you this fall at the U.S. Open. Appreciate your time here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Y'all stay tuned. Bass Edge will be back with Aaron and I after this brief message.
You know the importance of protecting your investments, so why use anything else other than the original and toughest DIY keel protector for your boat, Megaware KeelGuard. Grinding sand, abrasive rocks, and concrete ramps are no match for our exclusive contoured edge and patented technology. Megaware KeelGuard keel protectors are made tough and made to stick. Their do-it-yourself installation takes less than an hour, providing the longest-lasting, most dependable keel protection for your boat, guaranteed for life. Developed specifically by boat builders offering the best keel protection in the industry. Also from Megaware KeelGuard, Skeg Guard, Flex Step Pro, and Pontoon Guard. So give your boat the performance edge. Put on the protection the pros pick. Megaware KeelGuard.
The Powerpull Charge Marine Power Management Station is the most advanced system of its kind available on the market. It does the work of 3 devices, a traditional battery charger, a charge on the run, and an emergency start system, all in one compact unit. The Charge lets you run your boat's accessories the way you want to run them by allowing you to monitor and control your power usage through the Powerpull app. It automatically devotes power to the batteries that need it the most for maximum efficiency. The new Charge from Powerpull. Power where you need it, power how you need it, power when you need it.
Be at home with nature with nature-inspired art, decor, and gifts by Wild Wings at wildwings.com. Explore art prints and canvas wraps of bass, trout, walleye, muskie, and more by acclaimed artists like Mark Cicino.
I primarily paint underwater scenes of game fish, and usually in a fishing situation, going after prey or going after a lure or a fly. I get asked sometimes whether I like fishing better or artwork. It would be tough to give either of them up. I can't really think of a good reason to give either up, so I'm going to stick with them.
Make your home, office, or cabin show off your passion for angling. Visit wildwings.com/BassEdge and sign up for an exclusive offer to BassEdge listeners of 10% off your next order. Give something special to your loved one and be at home with nature. Visit wildwings.com/BassEdge. That's wildwings.com/BassEdge to get 10% off your next order of nature-inspired art, decor, and gifts by Wild Wings.
Kurt, as that interview went on, obviously a great interview, but I wrote down two things: perspective and goals.
Yeah, Justin's got those for sure. I love the fact that he is a bass freak, right? Just been a bass nut since day one, working at RoboWorm and just coming through the Western ranks and dominating over there. And it just seems like whatever he's done in life, he has tried to work through and meet some kind of goal, not really, overstepping his personal foresight, I mean, like, why haven't you, we asked him, why haven't you gone further? And he's not really like pushing it to that level, to the national level. If it happens, he's happy to take that step, but he's got a great perspective to achieve personal goals, things that are in front of him that he knows are legitimately achievable, I guess you might say. And, you got to break this down to the book with Dr. J, right?
I know. It's crazy how things always come back to the mental aspect,
It is. And I think it does because he's driven with that passion. Passion of bass fishing eats him up in a good way every day. He thinks every day about how to catch bass, about how to improve whatever it is, maybe his sponsorships with Evergreen and the other, companies that he's associated with. But he's constantly thinking about how to catch a bigger, better bass and have fun in the game and sport of bass fishing. So I think that's what Dr. J runs through. He talks about the mind and how you've got to be able to focus. And, when you have obstacles, have the right perspective to achieve goals, which I think when you take it all into a big formula that Justin Kerr has been successful at achieving those things. So
it's how right then segment B there, where we were talking about changing environment. I mean, fishing is it's just a changing dynamic. And certainly, with, of course, you're referencing the Psychology of Exceptional Fishing and that blueprint that he's laid out in two books, the revised edition and the old edition. So certainly both of those can be found on BassEdge.com. But great episode, Kurt. Hats off to you again for putting together another really, really good episode. But
don't forget to get your rat, Aaron. Get that rat.
Yes.
The rat. It's coming out heavy.
For sure. But we have reached kind of the end of our rope here, and it's time to shut down. Any final thoughts as we shut this down?
Continually thanking Bass Edge Nation for just being a part of the podcast so that we have this great podcast. Don't forget to keep following us on those social platforms. Instagram, much more active there over the last 12 months. So, be sure to follow us there on Instagram. Still, posting regular updates on Facebook, and always want your feedback. Continue to bring those questions in, and it's just great to have everybody as part of the show.
Absolutely. I second that. And we will proceed, and hopefully everybody gets to now transfer over into their boat and get out on the water and have some fun and put some of this knowledge to use. So for Kurt Dove and the rest of the Bass Edge crew, I am Aaron Martin, and we look forward to seeing you right here in a couple weeks as Kurt hopefully maybe gets us Jacob Wheeler on the line. So long, everybody.
The Edge is presented by Megaware KeelGuard. For more information on BassEdge or to shop at the BassEdge online store, visit BassEdge.com. And be sure to join Kurt Dove and Aaron Martin right here on another episode of The Edge, brought to you in part by Nitro Boats, Lucas Oil, ProtectTheHarvest.com, Mercury Marine, Powerpull, and Transport Graphics.